from where she's sitting. So thank you so much for creating time out of your busy schedule to be with us this morning. All right, so I don't know where to start because your life is full of, so much that you have done personally in your personal life and even to enrich the lives of others. But I want to start way back from where it all began, something that will resonate with a majority of us in the room as African women. I'd like to take you back to the village, to the grass where it all started. Tell us a bit about Dr. Riria, the ordinary, normal village girl, your early life, a little bit about that for us to begin to understand why, you defied all odds to be where you are today. Talk to us about your early life.
I want to welcome you, begin by welcoming you to Kenya as your mother, as your grandmother. Some of you are young enough to be my grandchildren. And for me, this is a beautiful morning. An opportunity to hold a conversation with you, and it's going to be as honest as it can. I want to recognize my communication team from the Jennifer Riria Foundation, Jennifer Riria being me, Josephine, yeah, thank you. Who else is here from the team? Frank, thank you. And I never remember names, so I give back to them, but I don't remember their names. So, but they are all lovely people, and I know Ken is somewhere around the corner. Let me welcome you to Kenya from Ghana, and those from here, welcome. They must have seen me somewhere, and so they know me. So I'm a Kenyan woman, I'm an African woman, I'm a global woman. All right? And this is the journey I'm going to try and share with you as shortly as I can, because my journey is so long. It's very difficult to talk about all of it. So I'll take snaps and snaps of it for you to just see where we are. The reason is, the only aim for this discussion and conversation is to be able to tell you there is nothing impossible for a woman to do. I was born many years ago, actually 71 years ago, in a small village on top of Mount Kenya. People ask me, why do you tell people you were born 71 years ago? Hide it. You don't look it. I said, age makes it better. The older wine, right? If you look for a whiskey, which is 1960, 1986, you will pay $150 or more to get it. So it's not a joke. So that's where we are. That's how valuable it is. I grew up in a very small village. I was the fourth, born in a family of 10. I was the fourth, and I was the fourth girl. So when I got in, I wasn't welcome. This is Africa, you know. Yeah. Truth be told, my dad expected a boy, of course. He didn't expect a girl. So my mother was the victim of giving birth, as if she was giving birth alone, to a girl. And that lived with me for a long time. I'm making a very wide story short. That lived with me for a long time. However, my dad died in my hands like a baby, like this, like a baby, all given, because I'm also a very fervent Christian who believes that forgiveness must be real, and it must be practiced, and it must be the way to go. And the Lord being the ruler of my heart, I have got to make sure that I practice what I say I do. So my dad died, being my darling. And what he did was give me responsibility of his family that needed sorting out. Now, so as a young girl, I went to school like everybody else in the village, fetching water, carrying firewood, carrying babies on my back and cooking, the normal thing an African girl would do. I had only one dress in my life to wear to school, wash it in the night, hang it, and in the morning wear it. But I got my first word of the cleanest girls in the school at that point in time.
This one school uniform?
One school uniform. And when it got torn, because you couldn't go to school in a torn uniform, I went to my neighbor, who was the teacher, and I said, you know, if you give me some work, I can buy school uniform. So I was so small, and I have poor health. So he said, okay, go and pick ferns. You know, the fern that grow on the, outside? Pick those. Then, after 3 hours, he came and said, you go to so-and-so and measure your school uniform. When I went home, I was beaten to an inch of my death by my dad. You went looking for work in people's houses. Pride, okay. But for me, I learned the first thing to do that time, step out for myself and work for myself. It started there. My entrepreneurial spirit started there. My wanting to step out started there. Because the next day I wore uniform and I was in school looking like everybody else and feeling very proud. I then joined a high school. I scored very highly in that primary school. A's, nobody got A's until now in that school. And they still have my name and my picture that time, at that school, which is my village school. Going to high school, of course, I was like everyone else. I went to a private school, not private school, a mission school, a Precious Blood school. And at Precious Blood, we were taught everything to do. You cleaned, you look after your food, you put it in the big bath, and then 2 ladies cooked for 600 students. So the principle was, if you didn't clean your food, eat it with the weevils. It's up to you. Responsibility. So even today, when my door knob falls off, I screw it in first before I can call a carpenter. Responsibility. All right?
Let me just...
So, bringing this fast forward, because I want to come to now. At the university, I looked out for young girls because there was teachers who used to abuse girls in schools at the university. I would organize. I was a terrible activist. I would organize for students, the boys, to carry a man's lecture up and take them to the administration to say, we want to beat him, he's sleeping with our girlfriends. And it killed that. And then I represented the lecturers, they send it to council. And I would voice all these things, and the men would look at me and say, where does the child come from? Because I was very small. So, make story short, I grew university like everybody else. I'm an institutional builder, as you heard. I deal with making sure that institutions survive that will support young people. I sat on international boards. Women's World Banking looks after 30 countries of the world, institutions. I look after institutions here, a bank, a microfinance institution, development institutions. How do you do?
All right.
And yes.
Before we get to that part, and that is what I want us to focus on this morning, I'd just like to take you back to your early life, just a little bit before we wind up on that. You used to walk to school barefoot, and many know that you grew from a humble background. I want you to describe how humble was humble, and how did you sail through that season of your life?
You know, I didn't know anything else better. The only person I knew in my life was a teacher. So all of us aspired to be teachers. Because at the teacher's house, you would be able to have tea and bread. That doesn't seem anything to you people because, bread and tea, what? But that time, bread and tea. So I didn't have shoes. If I had one dress, I wouldn't have a shoe, would I? So I walked on bare feet to school with my bare dress on. It was cold, we never felt cold. It rained on us, we never got wet. We dried. It dried as we went on. So that's what it did. And everybody else did it. A lot of people did it from the village. But I didn't have shoes. My first shoe was when I was called to report to Form 1. Then I had to wear shoes because those were, and I bought a shoe one size less. Because I thought if you buy a big shoe, you don't look nice. It's better you buy a small shoe. And I developed codes that I still nurse until today. So
I can picture the young you struggling to even get used to wearing a shoe, leave alone a size.
And then I wore them separate.
All right.
This right leg, I wore the shoe on the left leg. Now, these days I look at it because my granddaughter, who is 6 months, she's trying to put the shoes properly, but I couldn't. Was I stupid? No.
It was circumstances.
Yeah.
It was all you knew then.
That's right.
I'm trying to find out from you also, at that young age, what was your dream for yourself? What is it that you were looking at?
Yeah. My dream was to get away. To get away from that village. I thought my dad was the most cruel person in the world. And I came later to know he really loved us to death. But I thought this is a very cruel man. You would never be allowed to visit neighbors. You would never be allowed to go to church alone. You must go with someone else. He never allowed us to do what other girls did in the evening, walking around the village and singing. He never did. If you did, you would be beaten and hung on a manila thread.
Does that relate to any of you? African fathers, how strict they are?
But if you look at it, it's because he knew the dangers, what would happen to us, but he never said it. And my mother was too subdued to be able to say it. So we thought he was cruel. Later, I came to realize this man really loved us. And so I loved him to death.
That dream you had would not have been possible courtesy of something that happened to you right after high school. You became a mother at a time that you had not anticipated. I mean, how did you sail through this season of your life that you're here today? Because many girls who could be listening to you have gone through that as well. Being mothers at a time when they did not anticipate. Teenage pregnancy is still a huge crisis in our country. I want you to talk to us about how you picked up your pieces and how you turned that season of your life into a lesson that has brought you to where you are today.
My father and mother were staunch Christians, Presbyterians. And the thought of having a child out of wedlock was not a crime. It was more than a crime. So the first thing you do is you're banished from home. And my father, being a deacon, is like, he does not want to have anything to do with me. And that child, if I brought it home, he's going to spear my stomach and bring that bone and take that baby and throw it to the dogs. So I never went home. I went to stay I lived with my sister until I got a baby. But it crushes you. And that is why now at Eco Network Africa, we have a program that supports girls going back to school. And support the mothers of those girls to be able to make life. Now, coming back to me, I carried my baby with me to Tanzania because I got admission to Tanzania. That is the time that universities in this country were sharing students, exchange programs. So I went to the University of Dar es Salaam. And I put my baby on my back, got into a train, and went to Tanzania, not knowing when I land in Dar es Salaam what I'm going to do. But I did. And with the way the Lord will have it, I went to the administration block and I said, I'm here and I'm with the baby and I'm going to school. So one of the admin ladies, whom I never met, said, come, I'll give you somewhere to stay. And we lived with her for 3 years until I finished my school with my baby and I came back home.
The reason I asked you that question is because one thing I know about you is how passionate you are for girl child education.
Yes.
And you have a very strong opinion of allowing young mothers to go back to school and to rebuild their lives. We'll talk about that later. But I want to just talk about, some of the things you have achieved academically. That barefoot village girl who turned into an academic guru. You went ahead to pursue a master's, a Bachelor of Arts degree in education.
Yes.
A Master of Arts degree in education administration.
That's right.
From the University of Leeds in the United Kingdom. And you have a PhD.
An MA also.
An MA? Yes.
Leeds University.
Wow. And a PhD in Women Education and Development.
Yes.
From Kenyatta University.
Yes.
I mean, what is education? What does it mean for you? Because having just, gone through high school was not enough. You went ahead to pursue a degree. That was not enough. You had to do a master's. That was not enough. You had to do a PhD. What is education for you? And what is the value of education, especially for a young woman who is listening to you this evening?
I think if you look at the world today, there's a baby somewhere. Wow. If you look at this world today, you'll get nowhere without education. All right? For me, I had to go back down to school because I needed to get away from my village. I needed to get away from my father. Not because he was anything, but because I thought he was cruel. I needed to take my mother. I didn't care whether my mother and other children, I just needed to take my mother away. And I couldn't take her unless I got education and became a teacher, see. I think that education does not only give women a job. That is not the value for education. But it positions a woman, gives women a voice to be able to stand with other people in the world. Having opened up from a village, the women in the village stay in the village. They are born in the village, they grow in the village, they are married in the village, and they die in the village. So education gives you a chance to get away. And then you begin acting for yourself because you have seen what another woman does somewhere else. So, and of course, yes, it's true. If you want to acquire a position of power, you need to be able to compete in this world like anyone else. So what happens to us women most of the time is that we get to O levels. O levels, I do not know whether in other countries you have O levels. That is end of secondary school. And the thing you are running to is to get married. Because you have been told over the years, if you don't get married, you're useless and you're ugly. So I like to talk to young women and tell them, marriage is good, family is good, education is better.
Wow, education is better. I mean, how many degrees do you have? Ask yourself that. How far have you gone academically? Because what she's saying is that for you to make it, for you to beat the competition, you have to have what it takes. See, that's what you're getting from her. You have to have what it takes. So what do you have already, and how do you enrich that to put you at an advantage in the competition?
And I'd like to put a dimension to that and say, it's not only the academic accolades, the related discipline or professional careers that you can develop in and make sure that you get to the top also. Because really, if you have to make an informed decision also, knowledge is important, even if you're in Portly, even if you are in agriculture, whatever area you are in, be an expert. It is not only a degree, paper degree, that is important, but you need to position yourself in a way that everybody recognizes your skill. because you have got it.
All right. You did a PhD in Women Education and Development from KU, Kenyatta University. As a scholar, why did this area interest you? And as you were doing even your research paper, what are some of the things that you discovered when it comes to the gender agenda in the education sector?
And the concept that I was developing, that I still have, is that there's a very close connection between education, women, and development. And I needed to show that connection in my thesis and research. That a woman who is educated addresses and daily involvement differently from a woman who has never gone to school. And it does not mean that woman who has not gone to school is stupid. It just means her application. And the application of somebody who has not gone to school is different. So I needed to show women do need to acquire skills that are also internationally recognized for them to be able to cause development, not only for themselves, but their own countries. So I looked at education as an entry point for women to be able to engage in banking, in investment, in building, in construction, but education basically, meaning acquiring skills. There's a difference between education and schooling. Schooling is that you will go to school and finish. And I think that's what is happening these days. I was one of the people who participated in the High Education Inspection Board, 2006, appointed by President Kibaki. And what we found, because you asked me that, what we found is that even in the colleges that are supposed to be training technical teams that should develop institutions like yours and ours, like Ghana and Kenya, they still offer degrees, paper degrees. So in Tanzania, when we were going to school, we called them spanner boys. Those who were in a technical, in the campus, those who were taking technical courses, we called them spanner boys, and we wouldn't date them. Why would we date a spanner boy? That attitude, I really wanted it to be changed too. A mother is a better mother if she has got some education. Because you know, when a child is dehydrated, what exactly do you do? That's simple. Development must be seen within the context of people's lives. So how do you get women to address their own situations because they're educated? A woman who has been to school, the husband will come and give her some money. What does she do with it? Somebody who has been trained to do something will take 5 shillings and either put it in savings or put it in a small business so that she can go on with, development. Looking at development in very many dimensional ways. It's only possible if women have know-how and they have the skill.
Yeah, that's very true. But you do realize that also we are coming at a time when there has been a lot of hindrances for women's access to education and girls' access to education. You worked as a teacher for several years.
Yes.
What concerns you most about this challenge, and what would be your recommendations to address the gender gap in the education sector so that many women can be able to do what you're saying a woman who is educated is able to do?
In Africa, we have had, let me say it's changing now. Girls were supposed to stay at home, get married and have babies, and the church enhanced it and says this is a God-given responsibility, which is true. It's a God-given responsibility. A man cannot give birth, so it's a really blessed responsibility, but that does not mean that you get bogged down there. The problem right now in Kenya and the rest of Africa is that young girls get pregnant very early in their lives. And then what happens, the society has got a perspective of what this girl is all about. You are bad, you are immoral, you are uncontrolled, and so forth and so on. Getting through that, I told you, was very difficult for me, and to get away from the village for me to be able to do that. A lot of girls are not able to get away because they don't have a chance to get away. So they get crushed there. And the law, even in Kenya, we have a law in Kenya that says that girls go back to school. Who implements it? Nobody. So it means even if our countries have evolved to the level that we are saying, a pregnant girl can go back to school and continue with school, it doesn't happen. There's a society that says you can't do that. We call it, in gender, we call it domestication. I think what needs to happen, and this is what we are trying to do, since we have the laws in most of the African countries, and this is something that as Africa Women Leaders Network, which I'm the chair of the Kenyan chapter, and it has chapters all over Africa, Africa Women Leaders Network. We are trying to ask African countries through AU, why is it that we don't have programs, sustainable programs, that maintain girls to go back